Here we go. Okay, everybody. Don't fight over seats. There's enough room for everybody. Stop pushing. Okay, good morning, everybody. So we finished chapter 19 yesterday. We're going on with chapter 20. And what we talked about today is the fact that one might have assumed, and just to remind ourselves, this is quite a technical, Kabbalistic conversation, and don't get really upset or confused or frustrated. This too will pass, and we may even learn something. So we've been talking about the fact that in a general sense, we tend to think of the difference between the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the four-letter name of God, and Elohim, the other name of God, among other names of God. There are actually a bunch of names of God. That the difference between the two is that Elohim is connected to multiplicity. That's in fact why, grammatically speaking, which is kind of an irony, that the very name for God is actually in the plural. And then on the other hand, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei represents the essence of God, that's representing an absolute unity. And that's why when we say Nikmat Hashem, we're going to fight the vengeance of God against Midyan. Midyan represents multiplicity, that we're going to invoke the power, as it were, of Yud-Kei Vav, which represents unity. So we're in the middle of a discussion showing how it's not so simple. That in fact, both Elohim and Yud-Kei Vav-Kei represent the notion of the multiplicity of creation. Both of those terms. Well, how could that be? So we began the answer yesterday by describing the fact, just proving that Yud-Kei Vav-Kei in fact also is attached to multiplicity. How so? We pointed out that even the very letters Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, those four letters, are in fact emblematic and representative of multiplicity in creation. That just like there we say that the multiplicity of worlds, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, those four Kabbalistic terms representing the four successive worlds, that they're represented by the four letters of Hashem's name. So Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, Atzilut, Bria, Yetzirah, Asiyah, that those four worlds are expressive of the different names. More than that, the 10 Sfirot are representative, which are the creative emanations of God, are also expressed and represented by the four letters of God's name. Yud representing which Sphira? Let's see if anybody out there in digital land knows the answer. So the Yud of Hashem's name represents which Sphira? Chokhmah. Right, Zev. That was amazing. That's incredible. Thank you, Zev. So, and then the Hey represents the Sphira of Binah, and the Vav represents what is in Kabbalah called Zer Anpin, which are the 6 emotive attributes. And then the last Hey in the Tetragrammaton, the 4-letter name of God. I love that word, Tetragrammaton. That it represents the Sphira of Malchut, okay? And those 10 Sfirot, creative attributes of God, are in fact represented in each world flowing to the next through a kind of oscillation. Kelsey, wake up if I scream. You forgive me. Of these modalities of Tzimtzum and Hit Pashtut. So contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion, contraction, expansion, through the 10 Sfirot, through each successive world, until there comes into being something as lowly as a cell phone. Okay, it's amazing. Okay, now we're going to now go further, if you could imagine. So we're going to explain on a more subtle level how Yud-Kei Vav-Kei and Elohim are both related, to multiplicity and differentiation, but in a different way. You know, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. This is the Surgeon General's warning, that when it comes to things like this, and we're going to say this explicitly in this parak, we can't fully understand these ideas unless your name is Larry Weinstein. But for most mere mortals, so these ideas are profound, ultimate ideas. So there are two ways that someone can relate to this. I have a Machutin like this, the father of one of my sons-in-law, that he's sort of a very logical, rational thinker. And if something cannot be defined in kind of clear, logical, rational terms, he kind of like, I'm out of here, right? And I think it's kind of a shame. And I've told him this to his face, that just because something can't be fully grasped doesn't mean it can't be partially grasped. And that partial grasping is itself worthwhile and transformative. Okay? That must be meaningful to Larry over there.
I can't say what I think. Sorry.
Okay, that's all right. So, so this is it's an important idea in life, that just because something cannot be clearly understood doesn't mean that a partial glimpse is not itself worthwhile, even redemptive. Now, and this is certainly true of what we're talking about. Now we're talking about God. We're talking about the relation between God and creation. Come on. Like, that's not something which is fully digestible to the mere mortal mind, even after a strong cup of coffee. So but we can get a certain glimpse of insight. Okay, and that makes it worthwhile. So just bear that in mind as we're learning this. Chapter 20. V'zehu ha'hefresh bein shem havaya l'shem Elokim. This now is the difference between the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, the four-letter name of God, and Elokim, the other name of God. Dibemet havaya v'Elokim kula echad. The truth of the matter is, they're not two separate things. God forbid. The name Elokim and the name Havaya. The Shem Elokim hu ein sof mamash k'mo Shem Havaya. That both of those names are in fact expressions of the infinite God. You know, there are not, God forbid, multiple gods. So the name Yud-Kei Vav-Kei and the name Elokim are creative expressions, or I should say creating expressions would be a better term, creating expressions of the utterly infinite and transcendent God, Ein Sof, without limit, infinity. Umimele ein Hashem Elokim mastir klal al Shem Havaya. That's why the name Elokim, which is mostly associated with creation, that's why when the Torah describes creation, it says, Breshit bara. Help me out, Larry. Elokim, thank you. In the beginning, Elokim created. That's why it uses that name, Elokim. That name actually doesn't hide the more transcendent name, Yud-Kei Vav-Kei. No. It's not a hiding. In fact, because Elokim, that creating name of God or expression of God, doesn't really hide Yud-Kei Vav-Kei, that's why even when you have created beings, that in fact they express the concept of Tachlit Ha'achdut, of ultimate unity. The fact that even the multiplicity of creation, if we have spiritual eyes, that we can sense the underlying harmony and unity of all creation. Why? Because Yud-Kei Vav-Kei also is a creating expression of Ein Sof, of the unlimited, infinite God. So Yud Kei Vav Kei is also related to creation. Ella. So what's the difference between the two? D'shem Elokim megale b'chinat ha'hitchalkut shebahem. That the name Elokim reveals is an expression of differentiation of creation. It's the divine creating force which brings into being difference. The fact that Zev is not Larry, and Larry is not a microphone, and a microphone is not a cell phone. That is an expression of the name Elohim, that creating expression of divinity. Elohim, the name Elohim, that's why it's grammatically in the plural. V'hainu liyot nivraim bivchinat ribui pratim mechulakim. That's why creation is representative of the multiplicity of individual entities, as we just explained. But in fact, that expression of multiplicity, differentiation, is an expression of something which ultimately derives from the very essence of God. Atzmut. Atzmut means essence. Now he's going to say something amazing. This is going to be a take home. Is everybody ready for a take home? And Zev, I want you to take this home.
Take it home.
To your other half. I don't want to say better half, because we're both precious in this case. Can't say that for everybody. Oh, Hashem. Shake my hand. I'm lonely. Okay. So he says the following. Have you ever noticed that there is an infinite expression of multiplicity in the world? And the more one studies the physical world scientifically, the more one is impressed by multiplicity. The more, let's say you're a biologist or whatever field you're in.
Physics.
Physics.
Like atom was the smallest particle, and then they go further. They found the neutrons,
Beautiful.
protons, and then they go further. And they got quarks, yes,
And
so forth.
string theory and all these kinds of things. Creation is multitudinous. Of course, one expression of this, which our sages talk about, if you're very crude, then you say, oh, there's a species called Homo sapiens. That's us. Homo sapiens. So whoa, there's this thing called Homo sapiens, human beings, right? So, but look further. You notice how the fact that even though there's something called Homo sapiens in the world, by the way, how many Homo sapiens are there in the world right now?
Like 20. It can't be.
A lot. You can ask Professor Google what the population of the world is right now. Okay, and growing. Okay, so it's a lot. So you might have thought that, okay, there's something called a category of created beings called human beings, Homo sapiens. But look further. Do you notice how that even when you have identical twins, genetically identical twins, they're actually not really identical? Okay, and as a matter of fact, you need go no further than to speak to my daughter Miriam, who has identical twin boys, Adi and Eyal. Now, even though to the crude observer, like their Zeta, that's moi, I actually do have a hard time differentiating between Adi and Eyal. However, the more sensitive observer, like my precious Eshet Chaya, my wife, she knows which one is Adi and which one is Eyal, in spite of the fact that they are genetically identical. There are no two human beings alike on this entire planet, even though we have how many human beings at this point? 7 billion. 7 billion Homo sapiens, and none, not two of them are alike. Not two. In this entire planet, you would think 7 billion. It's got to be a few that are identical. They are not identical. Why? You know why? Because if creation is flowing, now here's the irony, this is such a great takeaway. If creation is flowing ultimately from Ein Sof, from unlimitedness, now here's the irony, get this. So therefore, even when there is differentiation and separation, that differentiation must express what quality? The quality of the source. Since the quality of the source is infinity, so therefore the differentiation must express what quality? Infinity. That's why there's an infinite multiplicity, an infinite differentiation, because that very differentiation is an expression of the infinity of the essence of God. Now, isn't that interesting? Because on a certain level, unless we've been trained in Chassidut and Kabbalah, you might have thought that multiplicity and differentiation is a kind of frontal assault on the unity and transcendence of God. But according to this, the greater the differentiation, the greater the multiplicity, that differentiation and multiplicity is a very expression of the transcendent infinity of God. Isn't that, you hear the paradox there? What a beautiful idea. That to the extent that there's differentiation, that is in fact a greater expression of the infinity and limitlessness, the Ein Sof, the utter transcendent infinity of the divine root of existence. The me'achar shehem ba'alei gvul, harei hayat tzarich liot ketz ugvul lemetziutam. You might have thought that since created existence has limitation, right? It's not infinite, it's finite. That's the nature of creation. So how could it be that all of existence, in fact, has such a multiplicity of differentiation? Answer, as we just said, that in fact, Ein Sof, the infinite root of creation, because of its perfection, therefore, creation itself bears this kind of expression of infinite multiplicity, flowing from the unity of God. Let's pause here and we will go on. Be'ezrat Hashem Yitbarach tomorrow morning. Looking forward to that. Have a great day.